Hey everyone, this is Brad Wood here. I have another quick video in my What's New in Commandbox 4 screencast series. And first and foremost, if you haven't already checked it out, take a look at our blog post here that has all of the new highlights and features of Commandbox 4 all rolled into one little ball that you can read and try out. And what we'll be covering today is mentioned here and it's under interactive inputs. So there's a couple, so there's a new way that Commandbox can collect input from you as opposed to just saying, please give me an answer, and you type and hit enter. And that's sort of like the equivalent of checkboxes or radio buttons. We have it one place already in Commandbox, and you'll probably see it more in the future. And that would be whenever you start a server that's already started. So just to do a quick example, I'm here in a directory. You can see with my bullet train prompt that the server is currently running. So when I try to start it again, we're met with this message. This server is already running. Overriding a running server will do horrible things and kick your cat. And of course, use the force parameter to skip the check. So down below, you can see that the way we interact with this is we have three possible options. What would you like to do? Provide a new name for the server, keep starting the server, or just go away and don't start it right now. So very simple and straightforward. The way you interact with this is you can use the up and down arrows to move between the different options. So I'm just hitting up and down to change what's highlighted. You can also hit tab and shift tab, which I'm doing now, to move up and down. So you highlight the option you want, you press space bar to select it, that moves the X down there, and then you can simply hit enter to go ahead and choose that option. So I can hit enter and it says stop. And you see that it does output what the question was and what your response was. What would you like to do? Do not start the server right now. And just to show for completeness, if I go back into that, you can always, on pretty much any input control in Commandbox, I can always hit Control C, which I'll do right now, and that will simply cancel out. It actually cancels the entire start command, just kills it all and rolls back to the prompt. So that's always an option to hit Control C now in Commandbox 4. Okay, so the 2 points of this video was just to show you that new input and how to use it. The second thing was how you can actually create your own inputs like that very easily via a nice little DSL was exposed to you in your task runners or your custom commands if you're running Commandbox modules. So if we jump back over to our docs, under the task runner section on the task interactivity page, we have examples of ask and wait for key and confirm and all these things. So under multi-select input is where you can see examples of how you can create your own inputs like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to copy this sample code to my clipboard, and we're going to go back over to Commandbox, and we're going to do task create to initialize the new task runner. And then let's go ahead and open this up in my default editor. Okay, so here's my default task runner. Let's just paste this sample code in here. So let's take a quick look at it. What do we have? We have a function which comes from our base task CFC called Multiselect, and then we chain to that additional methods we want to call. So set question, what is your favorite color? Right? I always like to make sure I leave a space at the end, so you kind of separates that out in the front end. And then set options, I can pass in a comma delimited list of options. We'll show how to do an array next. And then you have to terminate the DSL with a final method so we know you're done adding options, and that's the .ask. So this blocks, waits for the user to respond, and then the user response comes into this variable called color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and say print line, you chose, and I'm going to output that color variable. So let's go ahead and give this a run. So I type task run to run my task runner, and we have what is your favorite color. So Commandbox takes that DSL, that code that we had, and it generates this prompt for us. And of course, the up and the down key work, tab and shift tab. You can't see it very well in this ConEMU terminal, but the R, the G, and the B are also actually bold because the first letter of each word defaults to a hotkey. So I can hit the B key on my keyboard now, and it'll actually jump down to blue and select it, in addition to just hitting the arrow key and pressing the spacebar. So when I hit enter, you chose red. So the variable color here that came back was a string because this just allows for a single option to be selected. Let's take a look at another example here that gets a little bit more complicated. Let's paste this in. Okay, so let's see what we have here. we have the same starting method of our DSL, multi-select. We set the same question, but this time, instead of setting a comma delimited list as a string for our options, we're passing in an array, and it's an array of structures. So one structure that represents each option. So here we have the display value, which is what the user sees in the terminal, and value is what will actually be sent back as the response. So think of this as like the value of a checkbox in a web page, right? It doesn't always match what shows on the screen, but it's what comes in the form scope. And of course, we can even default the red option to being selected when the control loads. There's a couple more DSL bits in here. Set multiple. This allows the user to choose more than one option, which can be very handy based on your purposes. And we also have set required equal to true. Otherwise, the user would be able to leave all these options blank and not submit any of them. But this will force the user to select at least one of them, or otherwise to hit Control-C to completely cancel. And then we still terminate it with ask. So what's different is when we use set multiple as true, we get back an array of options, not a string of a single option. Now you'll get back an array regardless of whether the user chooses 1, 2, 3, or 0 options. Whenever you set multiple to true, you always get an array back. So let's go ahead and modify our output here. Let's use serialized JSON just so we can visualize the array that comes back, and then update that. So let's go ahead and let's run our code. Task run. The question looks the same, but now we can select multiple options. I can have them all selected. And if I try to deselect all of them and hit enter, just nothing happens. I'm hitting the enter key right now, but it's not allowing me to select it because it's required. And if I send back 2, then the output here in Commandbox does this line automatically for you. What is your favorite color? It outputs the 2 display values, red, comma, blue. But the actual array that came back was R and B, and that's because the values here I have are just R, G, and B as opposed to the full names. And if you didn't notice it, when I first ran this, red was selected by default. Okay, one more quick example. To kind of show these access keys, let's go ahead and copy this to our clipboard. Okay, so you're an Olympic gymnast, and we want to know what place would you like? First place, second place, or third place? Here you can see that I'm overriding what I want the access key to be, and that's the kind of hotkey you can press on your keyboard to jump to that option, all right? And this does not allow multiple options, so we don't need to worry about that being an array coming back. It's just going to be a regular old string. So there you go. So let's go ahead and run this example here, and I'll show you how it works. Task run. Okay, so if I press the number 1 on my keyboard, it selects first. If I press the number 2 on my keyboard, it selects second. If I press the number 3 on my keyboard, it selects third. Now you would probably want to signal that to your end users somehow, probably by maybe putting that in parentheses or something off to the side. But the point is you can kind of toggle those, or you can control those access keys in the same way you can do HTML. And of course I hit enter, and I don't know why I'd want to come in bronze, but hey, third is second loser, right? So that's the interactive input control for Commandbox 4. You might see it if you try to start the same server twice, but specifically have some fun with that in your custom task runners and your custom commands to really create a nice, rich user interface for your users. And all the goodness you can do are documented here in the docs. So that's all for today, guys. Have a good one.